My great-uncle Jimmy was an unfortunate man from the day he was born to the day he died. He was born backwards, you see, upside down, feet first and facing the wrong way. And the day he died, well, he was working for the ESB, digging holes to put up new pylons, and he fell into the hole and the pylon fell on top of him. But there was no day he was more unfortunate than June 28th of 1922. Now, on the 14th of April 1922, a man called Rory O'Connor had taken over the forecourts in Dublin in the name of the IRA. Now, it was the IRA versus the provisional government. That's the word I was reaching for, the Free State. Now, things started to tense up a bit in Dublin at that time. My great-uncle Jimmy, he was about 6 years old. My granddad, he would have been almost 1 at the time. And me great-nanny Parks, Elizabeth Parks, and her husband, they all lived in a tenement. Now, this tenement is where the Forecourts Hostel is today. They lived on the second floor, the third window in, if you're looking at it directly from in front of the Forecourts. Now, that building is right between Bridgefoot Street and Wine Tavern Street. Michael Collins's provisional government forces, they decided to put a gun each, an 18-pounder, on Bridgefoot Street and Wine Tavern Street at the end of June 1922. Now, my great-uncle Jimmy, he loved guns. He was obsessed with them. He really wanted to join the army. So, well, being a curious 6-year-old, every morning he'd stick his head out. But then, at about 4 a.m, one particular morning, the guns went off. They went off and they blew up the forecourts, getting into where the forces had been keeping their munitions, which was the Public Records Office, if I remember precisely. Now, great-uncle Jimmy, being unfortunate, he was also not particularly smart. So he stuck his head right out of the window, just as the forecourts were blowing up. Now, my Nanny Parks was beside herself with her calling, "Come back, Jimmy, you idiot, come back!" But, of course, he didn't listen to her, as most children don't like listening to their parents. So, out the head goes, and back it comes again, tumbling over himself and back and over and back, and in the middle of the floor was where he landed. He was knocked out cold, and one of his eyes blown right out of his head. Now, my great Nanny Parks, she was a corset maker by trade. By this stage, she hadn't been working in it for a while, but she still had some of her equipment that she needed. So she took a darning needle, she took a bit of tough leather string, and she sewed his eyelids shut. Because, well, as we are now at the moment, they were in isolation then because of what was going on. So she didn't know when it was she'd be able to get him to the doctors. Now, my great-uncle Jimmy survived. They were in there for about a week and a half, truth be told. And very soon afterwards, the whole family decided to get out of Dublin altogether, and they moved down to Youghal in County Cork. Now, Youghal is the complete opposite of inner city Dublin. There's beautiful seaside, there's green fields. They had a 3-bed house to themselves, which was huge coming from a tenement. So they lived happily enough there. My granddad himself, he ended up with a strange inner city Dublin, East Cork accent. Very odd altogether. But great-uncle Jimmy, he started playing marbles. Thing is, he would play marbles with his glass eye. Being an unfortunate man, well, he would consistently lose the glass eyes. And even when he wasn't playing marbles, when he'd decide to go out for a swim, the glass eye would pop out and he'd lose it in the sea. So to this day, there are at least 20 glass eyes belonging to my great uncle Jimmy, floating around the seaside in Youghal, County Cork.